Tigim. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, 16th chapter, 28th verse. Bhagavaddam parikramya pranipatya anumanya cha pradijamu pramudidaha samsando vaishnavim sriyam. Bhagavatam parikramya pranipatya anumanya cha pradijamu pramudidaha samsando vaishnavim sriyam. Bhagavantam parikramya pranipatya anumanyaya cha pradijagmu pramudidaha samsando vaishnavim sriyam. Synonyms. Bhagavantam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Parikramya, after circumambulating. Pranipatya, after offering obeisances. Anumanya, after learning. Cha, and Pradijagmuhu, returned. Pramudidaha, extremely delighted. Samsandaha, glorify. Vaishnavim, of the Vaishnavas. Sriyam, opulence. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation. The sages circumambulated the Supreme Lord, offered their obeisances and returned, extremely delighted at learning of the divine opulences of the Vaishnava. Purport. It is still a respectful practice to circumambulate the Lord in Hindu temples. Especially in Vaishnava temples, there is an arrangement for people to offer their respect to the deity and circumambulate the temple at least 3 times. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salagaya Chakshurunmilidam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stabidam Yena Bhudale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadadi Swapadandigam Vandeham Sri Gurum Sri Yudabadagamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajadam Sahagana Raghunada Nidam Dam Sajivam Sadhvaidam Savadudam Parijana Sahidam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalidam Sri Vishaka Nidamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dhinabandhu Jagatpade Gopesha Gopika Kanda Radha Kanta Damostude Tapta Kanchana Gauranki Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhano Sude Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarupasya Kripa Sindubhya Evacha Padidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktum Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinamadidastu Ma Vidurshavahai. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tatsat. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you so much for joining today on this very auspicious day of the appearance of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Today is the appearance day of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur is our Sampradaya Acharya. He's known as also 7th Goswami. It's very auspicious to remember such exalted Vaishnavas who have shown the path and dedicated their entire life for propagating the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we are so fortunate and extremely fortunate. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur is our great grandfather. So Thank you so much. So today we will see the meaning of these words and what it means to us. And here we know that the four sages, they entered into the Vaikunta, but they are obstructed by the gatekeepers of the seventh entrance of the Vaikunta, the abode of the Supreme Lord. So we know that because of this act of the servants of the Lord, the sages, the Brahmanas, cursed the Jaya and Vijaya, and that's this chapter titled as The Two Doorkeepers of Vaikunta, Jaya and Vijaya, cursed by the sages. So there's a very beautiful situations that we can understand that how the Supreme Lord consider his devotees, how Supreme Lord consider his offenses, how Supreme Lord takes everything that is on, that anything, even the Jaya and Vijaya are the servants of the Supreme Lord, but anything that even the servants committed any offenses, that Supreme Lord takes as his own offense. And here we can see that when this all ordeal happened, and the sages cursed Jaya and Vijaya, and they were really angry after many years of penance to attain the Supreme. The sages came to the Vaikunta, the entrance abode of Vaikunta. They are obstructed, so they are very furious and angry. And even though they understood, the sages understood and realized the purpose of devotional service to attain Krishna, and in between the Lord and the devotees, and anything happens, and in order to attain the Lord, the mercy of the Lord, all is actually happening at the mercy of the Lord. So then, if the obstructions happens in between to attain, to see, chant the holy name, then devotees, take it this as an obstruction, an offense. So the sages cursed the Jaya and Vijaya, the doorkeepers. The Lord appeared on the scene there, seeing all this. So in order to pacify, in order to cool down the situations, four sages cursed Jaya and Vijaya that you fall down into the earthly planet as you are acting like a ordinary person on the mortal world. Even though you are here in this Vaikunta, you are acting like a mortal people, like in the mortal world. So you fall down there. You are not belongs to here. You are not fit over here to understand the meaning, the exalted, the position of the servants in Vaikunta. So the Supreme Lord appeared before them, and this is the time the four sages were offering the prayers to the Supreme Lord. And it's very beautiful to understand. So when the four sages, the prayers, they started to offer the beautiful glorification of the Supreme Lord, that they were saying, "O Supreme Lord, O the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are unlimited. You are completely supreme, and you are unlimited, you are everywhere. But by your mercy, you came to give us darshan, so we can see you face to face. And this is your unlimited potency, unlimited mercy. Only by your mercy that we can see you. Only by your mercy we can see you. You're so merciful." And this also confirms Bhagavad Gita. Krishna also reveals this how the Supreme Lord gives the mercy to the devotees. And Krishna telling to Arjuna in the 7th chapter, 25th verse, "Naham pragasha sarvasya yogamaya samavruta mudobhina abhijanadi lokoma achamavyayam." Krishna says, "I do not manifest to the unintelligent and foolish." Krishna is confirming that I do not manifest to the unintelligent and foolish. I am covered by my internal potency so that they do not know me, that I am the supreme personality of Godhead and all the Mudhobin Abhija, Lokomam Ajam Abhiyam, I am unborn in this world. So this is very clear that only by the mercy of the Supreme Lord one can see him. And in any way, by the mercy of the Supreme Lord only that we can see him, we can engage in his loving devotional services, we can take up his holy name. Any service that we can do to the Supreme Lord is only by his mercy. So there is a beautiful pastime happened with Narada Dev. Narada Dev wanted to see the Rasa dance in the Vrindavan. So Narada Dev came to Vrindavan to see Krishna and the gopis and the devotees. Narada Dev was looking around, where are they? Narada Dev was wandering entire Vrindavan. Narada Dev couldn't see anybody there. Even though Narada Dev, the devotee of the Lord, but with that intention to see the deep, intimate relationship with his Krishna and his devotees, even that is not possible unless and until the mercy of the Lord. So Narada was just wandering around and then fed up, like, what is happening? What is going on? Seeing that pathetic situation, Vrunda Devi just came as disguised as a gopi and came before Narada Dev and mentioned that, so I understand your intention. You came here. I'll take you to a kund. Come with me. And then you take dip there in this kund, that's Vrunda Kund. And then you can see. So Vrunda Devi brought Narada Dev to the Vrunda Kund, and Narada Dev took a dip in the Vrunda Kund, and then immediately Narada Dev changed to a Narada Gopi, became a Gopi. And then now Narada Dev could see everything. So it's very clear that the devotee is only by the mercy of the Supreme Lord that one can see, one can enter into the abode. That's also by the mercy of the Supreme Lord that 4 sages could enter into the abode of the Vaikuntha. Because they were doing the penance and they were doing the tapas, they are meditating upon the Supreme Lord for quite a long time. And the sages were glorifying in this way the Supreme Lord. And then Supreme Lord congratulated the realization, and that's where this chapter is beginning. The Supreme Lord congratulated the 4 sages by their realization, by their understanding, by their knowledge, by their glorification. And then Supreme Lord Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, and now started in return glorifying the sages and the Brahmanas, their Brahmanical position. Supreme Lord started to glorify that even, as a very, very powerful statement, even Mother Lakshmi is always serving my lotus feet. I'll always try to serve my lotus feet. I don't have that much attachment to her, but when the devotees, when the Brahmanas engage in the loving devotional service, there is nothing more dearer than those devotees. They engage in loving devotional service incessantly, and they are so dear to me. And just by their dust, that I would take their dust on my head. And I won't even take anything that which is offering other than, I'm very much like to take even the food offered through the mouth of the Brahmanas. And that is nothing that which can surpass this. So this way, the Supreme Lord was glorifying the 4 sages, their Brahmanical position. And Supreme Lord was saying that, yes, I approve your punishment. I approve your punishment. Because of this I take it as my own. Jaya and Vijay are my servants, and if servants does any offenses, commit any offenses, and I take it as my own. So in one way, you are actually giving you blessings. See the humble position of the Lord. So that's one of the greatest quality of the Supreme Lord, the humbleness. We know that there are so many instances that how Lord is actually shows his humility and humbleness. In the case of Sudama, in the case of so many, in the Bhrigu, the sage Bhrigu came to Vaikuntha and kicked on the chest of, Lord Mahavishnu, the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord was caught hold of the lotus feet of the Bhrigu and feet of Bhrigu Muni and requesting that, O sage, O my dear devotee, O sage, O Brahmana, my chest is so hard. Let me massage your feet because of you hit that rock-like heart. Your feet must have hurt. So let me massage your feet. This is the Supreme Lord. Supreme Lord is so in example. There are so many examples which shows that the Supreme Lord's that very compassionate and very humble nature. So here the Supreme Lord is actually in the similar way and telling to the four sages that I take my own because of my servants and I am the responsible for that. And please forgive me. And now you came here and just seeing you, this is my blessing. The Supreme Lord is telling to four sages and Kumaras, because of the Lord is seeing that they're devotional and how they are so elevated, they are so dear to the Supreme Lord. And Supreme Lord was saying that the punishment is I approve. And in fact, and then also Supreme Lord was saying that these are my servants, they are serving me with the devotion, and it's a mistake. And this mistake is not that as a big mistakes, and they would, reach back to me very soon. Take it this as a blessing. And Supreme Lord was saying, and all this to the Jaya and Vijaya, that they would be very soon join back me. And meantime, they will be also completely meditating upon me. So this is the, as it says that the Lord gives that mercy once anybody comes to the platform of the devotional service. Once we are in the book of that, the Supreme Lord, that the devotee, then that devotee never lost anything. That's why Krishna says that my devotee never perishes. Krishna was telling to Arjuna that declare it boldly, Arjuna, my devotees never perishes. My devotees never perish. So there is nothing that better than sublime than that to become a devotee and to serve the Supreme Lord in all respect. That's the perfection of the life. So after all this, the four Kumara sages, they saw the Supreme Lord. They were so content and they were so happy and joyful. And they were very blessed and realized, and they were praying to the Supreme Lord and glorifying the Supreme Lord. And now is a time to leave. So that's where we came to this verse. The sages circumambulated the Supreme Lord, offered their obeisances and returned, extremely delighted at learning of the divine opulences of the Vaishnava. So all this, what this means to us too, shows the extreme exalted position of a Vaishnava with the Supreme Lord. How the Supreme Lord takes care of his devotees and consider his devotees. And this, the four Kumaras understood by this when they met the Supreme Lord face to face by the mercy of the Lord. And how important a Vaishnava is for the Lord. Krishna says that Aham Bhakta Paradinada, I am Bhakta. I am dependent upon my devotee. And sometimes we see that the Supreme Lord, there's asked this question, why Supreme Lord puts the tilak? And tilak is usually considered as the lotus feet of Krishna. That's why the devotees does that. They put the tilak as a mark of lotus feet of Krishna, and the bottom they put the tulasi. And somebody asked this question, why Lord put this tilak? So the answer was, Srila Prabhupada's answer was, the lotus feet Lord puts is actually the devotees' feet. And Lord meditates upon the feet of the devotees. And this is the reciprocation. This is the way that the Supreme Lord treats and considers the devotees. So here we can see that the sages circumambulated the Supreme Lord. So Srila Prabhupada also mentioned the purport that as a part of devotional activities, anybody visits a temple, they circumambulate the Lord. Then why the circumambulation? Why we need to circumambulate? And usually it's done in 3 times. So circumambulation is also another way of showing our respect, showing our surrender, showing our dependency to the Supreme Lord. And it's mentioned that if anybody goes to the temple and if they don't circumambulate, and that visit is not complete. And even there is no opportunity to circumambulate, one has to turn himself 3 times as a symbolically that, I'm circumambulating the Supreme Lord. So the temple is an abode of the Lord. And here is similarly, the 4 sages circumambulate the Lord personally. And the temple is also the abode of the Lord. Their Lord is seated, Lord is present. So one who goes there and worship, and then before leaving the temple, one circumambulates the Supreme Lord. This circumambulation is mentioned in the scriptures. Also, we know that as a custom that devotees, those who visit the temple, and the tulasi plants and trees, poplar trees, and there are so many places, and the cows, they circumambulate. There are different numbers also there, especially Vaishnava circumambulate 3 times in clockwise direction. And it says that in the scripture also, one who circumambulate, yani kani ja sarvani brahmahatyadi kani cha tani tani pranakshandi pradakshina pade pade. This circumambulation, the scripture known as the pradakshina. This is in the Skanda Purana. It is very detailed explained about it. Pradakshina. Pradakshina means it is mentioned that one who does this pradakshina or pradakshina, that means pra means one can eradicate, it's a 4 syllable, and by doing this, one can eradicate all his sin. The pradakshina or circumambulation. Dha means one can fulfill all his desires. Dha, subhadha. That means he can attain that auspiciousness. Pradakshina. She means one can also eradicate all his karma. And na means one can attain even the liberation. So this is the meaning of pradakshina. Not only that, also like a sun in the solar system, and sun is actually in the middle, and every other planets circumambulate and rotate the one who is in the middle. So we are taking the Lord as in the middle, the Krishna, the Lord is in the center of our life. And the circumambulation also represents, our scriptures and everything is very scientific, and whatever the act we do is very scientific. So the one who circumambulate the deity or the Supreme Lord, that shows that we are totally dependent upon you, and without you that we cannot survive. And as we know that without the sun, none of the planet can survive, that will go and that will diminish. So similarly, we are completely dependent upon the Supreme Lord because of Supreme Lord is the center of our life. So circumambulation represents also that the complete dependency of the Supreme Lord. And upon leaving that, we are completely surrendering to the Supreme, that I'm completely dependent upon you. And also, it is mentioned that when we circumambulate 3 times, the first time when we circumambulate the Lord and the deity or the temple, that means we are nullifying all the sins which we committed by our body. And the second circumambulation mentioned that all the sins we committed by the senses and the mind. And then the third circumambulation is also mentioned that then we are actually can relieve from our false ego. So any circumambulation, that it represents that one who goes to the temple and the deity, one who leaves, that we circumambulate the deity and the temple, because to eradicate all this, understanding this by circumambulation, we are showing our respect and complete dependency and surrender unto the Supreme Lord. By this act, that just one can liberate himself. That's why the temple is very important. The seeing darshan of the Lord is very important. And it's mentioned that the temple worship, even many scriptures says that if you have any doksha, go to the temple and worship the Lord, you will be relieved from this your doksha. So because of this, because the Lord is the temple is an abode of the Lord, and there one who surrendered and dependency and showing the dependency, and one can eradicate all his sins, and they can attain the liberation, and with this sincere heart, with this understanding. So that's the reason. So in our scriptures also, we know that there are many instances, even Lord Brahma, when the Brahma Vimohana Leela, and after the offenses that Brahma did and stole all the cows and the gopas and all in the cave and came back, and Brahma saw that this is none other than the Supreme Lord. And Brahma was seeing that all Narayana forms of all the cows and the gopas. And Brahma could realize that this is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then with that, the repenting that the act which Brahma did, in order to relieve from that, in order to beg the mercy from the Supreme Lord, the Brahma was circumambulating the Supreme Lord 3 times. And how the Brahma was circumambulating? When the first circumambulation, Brahma was praying, praying the prostrated obeisance in front of the Supreme Lord and begging for the mercy and forgiveness. And not only once, did they again second time and then came back and pay the prostrated obeisances in front of the Supreme Lord and begging for the forgiveness and the mercy. And third time, and then Brahma was offering the prayers to the Supreme Lord. So this is the way that we can see that in the case of Indra also came down, and after the offenses Indra made, the Govardhan and Indra also circumambulated. So this is our scriptural references that one should do that in all respect, so that we show our complete dependency upon the Supreme Lord and beg the mercy for it. And by this act, one can eradicate all his sins which committed in his body, mind, and the words, and then eradicate the false ego, ahangar, and one can attain the liberation. So exactly like the sages did that, the 4 Kumaras circumambulate the Supreme Lord, and they extremely delighted. So this all shows us that how we should completely realize this, the important aspects of the devotional service and how we should perform. Srimad Bhagavatam gives us that each and every verse and each and every act of the devotee. So Bhagavatam also glorifies the devotees. It's not only the Supreme Lord. Bhagavatam is also the glorification of the devotees of the Supreme Lord, equally as the Supreme Lord. So that's the greatness of Srimad Bhagavatam. As if that Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, he was the 7th Goswami. He was completely dedicated his entire life for propagating the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And this was actually some point of time, it was diminished and Apa Sampradaya came. And by the mercy of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, that we completely then is revived the teachings of Lord Chaitanya in its original form. Nasif, that we can see that I was going through the biography of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. It's so amazing to see. From the age of 12, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur started to write, glorify the Supreme, and started to preach. And in the last 4 years, understanding and Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur became completely aloof from everything and completely focused on the Krishna, and then completely came into the samadhi of the Supreme Lord. And Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, by the mercy of the Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, that the birthplace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is excavated by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. And one time Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur has to go to the Vrindavan. But that night, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared before Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur and mentioned that you have a little more work over here. And that's where Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur came and searched for the birthplace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it was a very jubilant celebration that after seeing, and then also took the consider the Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj as the spiritual master. And we can see that the Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj and the son of Srila Vimala Prasad is the Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And then because of all this mercy, that the ray of the Vishnu, which is appeared as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, and then we can Srila Prabhupada, and we are so fortunate that we are all part of this great, the lineage of pure devotees, and we are so fortunate. There is nobody is more fortunate than this in this world, that we are all becoming the part of this Gaudiya Vaishnava by the Acharyas, great Acharyas. They are exalted, and in all over the world, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was, uploaded because of the literary work. Even at the time when the Srila Prabhupada appeared, 1896, that's the time the Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's, there is one book, I forgot the name, which was sent to all over the world. So basically, by the mercy of Acharyas, and it was already been arranged, that the appearance of Srila Prabhupada and the spreading of this holy name, the Krishna conscious movement all over the world. At the birth of 1896, the book which is sent all over the world in the libraries and places, that so it's already been, that the seed is already been sowed. So this is the arrangement of the Lord, dear devotees, and that we are even sitting here and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam's arrangement of the Lord and connecting to the Acharyas and the Vaishnavas. It's all the mercy of the Lord, as it says in the Bhagavatam. To this note, I would end here. Thank you so much for this wonderful association and the opportunity that we can meditate upon the Supreme Lord. Thank you very much. And Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Gauri Premanand. Hari Hari Bol.
Jai.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simheswar Prabhu. Would like to wish everybody a safe and Krishna conscious day ahead. Very auspicious day, appearance of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, fasting till noon. Also a special day. It's a new year for devotees from Kerala and other places. So happy Onam.
Thank you. Jai. Hari.
So Simheswar Prabhu is inviting for special Onam feast.
Yeah.
Hari Hari.
Hari Hari. Thank you. Please join us. Please join us.
Hari Bo.
Please join us. My wife is making a big feast.
Jai.
Hari Bo.
Go, Jai.
Alrighty. On that note, we'd like to offer our prayers to the Supreme Lord that every day is a new year in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna Hare Hare,
Krishna Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Singho, Jai Nrsimha, Jai Prahladesh, Jai
Padma Mukha Padma Vringa
Gravira Mahavira Vishnu Jvalam
Nrsimha Bhishanam Bhadram Nityam Namamyaham.
Nrsimha Bhagavan ki Jai, Prahlad
Jai.
Maharaj ki Jai.
Jai.
Let's offer our humble obeisances to all the assembled Vaishnavas. Vanchakalpataru
Namo Namaha. Vaishnavrinda ki
Jai.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai.
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 Hari 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 Bo.
Thank you, Simheswar.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Hare Krishna.
everyone. Happy
Hare
Onam to everyone.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Babaji. Hare Krishna.